with a special focus on Africa as it relates to energy. President Tinubu, during his contribution, said subsidy had to go to prevent Nigeria from bankruptcy, of which many Nigerians believe the present administration has bold vision that meets ambitious action. With me in the studio is Niyi Akinsiju, Finance and Development Economist. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thanks so much for the privilege.
The African continent is rich in renewable energy sources, so much so that it is often referred to as the Sun continent and has 60% of the world's solar resources. As a country with periodic challenges in oil and gas, and even hydro for electricity, how much of solar are we yet to utilize?
Yeah, well, we are still scratching the surface if we're talking about renewable energy throughout all through the spectrum of renewable energy, indeed. And of course, if you're talking renewable energy, you are not just talking about solar, that is the sun. You'll also be talking about hydro. You're talking about wind. You're talking about water. So to a large extent, we have not in any way, done or made any appreciable impacts around that area. But again, getting to exploit the renewable opportunities around us is also has to do with a lot of investment. And to get to that point of investment, you must also transit. So what we have in abundance that has been considered as this transition energy in Nigeria is gas, natural gas. So to a large extent, I, for one, believe that there is a need for that transition so that it can be seamless. We just don't have a break from our dependency on what do you call it, on charcoal or the traditional energy sources, but we have a transition energy source, the gas that we have been using. We use a lot of gas. We are supposed to use a lot of gas, but again, because of efficiency issues in our thermal plants, the supply, especially supply of gas to our thermal plants, we are also being constricted. There's a need to create a threshold of efficiency in terms of delivery of natural gas to our thermal plants. And then when we are able to properly exploit, either commercially and efficiently, our gas deposit, which is rated at more than 207 trillion, cubic feet of gas as of now. We should now, of course, use that opportunity to start tapping into our renewables.
Now, the continent's hydropower and wind energy, in terms of geothermal power generation, is set to overtake Europe by 2030. Yet the energy access gap keeps widening. How can we leverage global collaboration to harness this huge potential for Nigeria?
It's just like I said, it's about investment. And I think that remains at the core of what the president talked about during his session at that meeting at the forum. It has to be about inclusiveness, about the developed world, the G7 especially, understanding the fact that the African continent must be an active partner, in the development spectrum, as it were. So to a large extent, there is a need for the global north, as it were, to continue to identify area of possible investment. And in doing that, they should do it in collaboration with active players in the African continent. So it's there should be that change from where the global north believes they know what exactly are the needs, of countries in the Sahel, especially. That's the African Sahel. When that is established, you have a situation where investment is properly pointed and, of course, properly and efficiently invested for effect, for productivity, and, of course, for enablement of business, which is important, very important. What we have had so far, it's investors even coming from the global north, not understanding the nuances of local economy and local needs. So that collaboration, which is the fulcrum of that forum, the collaboration and inclusiveness is essential, to driving development in the African continent and of course matching up with whatever may be the ranking of the global north as it is now.
Okay, Nigeria and indeed the continent is in the need of more transfer of technology, more foreign direct investment, more capacity building for our people to become resilient and agile to external shocks. What do you see as potential gain from global collaborations?
It's well, anyway, we are in a managed globalized world now, globalized economy. Some years ago, it used the mantra was open, unrestrained, unrestricted globalization. Well, I think there are new philosophy that are defining or redefining globalization. So much that first there is a need to understand the challenges, the prospects, and the strengths of the local and domestic economy in a way that is positioned to link up with the global economy. Well, what is realizable here in Nigeria is the fact that we have, and just like the president noted at that forum, that we have a huge young population base. And not just that we have a huge young population base, we also have a huge young population base that is innovative, that is concentric in area of technology and innovation. So to a large extent, we have a population that is willing and ready, and of course inspired to tap into technological opportunities around the world. And perhaps most of us have not noticed it. There's this policy that the federal government had in many ways talked about. That is how to block the gaps being created by the so-called Japa syndrome, where our trained professionals find their ways into countries abroad. For some of us, that is an opportunity. While some people feel uncomfortable about it, I don't feel comfortable about it because, I don't feel uncomfortable about it because, again, the movement of our young professionals, into other countries, especially the developed world, is an opportunity, for technology transfer. They get to know and understand management processes and, of course, engineering processes in those worlds, and eventually come back, to Nigeria with that knowledge. And more than that, they are also remitting earnings back into the Nigerian economy. But more than that, the government has now said, in recognition of this gap, that it will increase spaces in Nigerian institutions of higher learning, so that as we have people moving out, we are even breeding more. So hopefully, Nigeria may be a net exporter of knowledge, of professionals to the world, and that also translates to mean that you are creating the capacity for the Nigerian youth to go into the world as export materials to understudy what happened outside. In the larger world, learn new technology, earn more money, and of course, revert to Nigeria. It's to the advantage of the country.
Great. With the engagement in Riyadh and the recently concluded World Bank meetings in Washington, would you say the rest of the world has recognized the importance of investing in and with Africa? And what do we need as a country to ensure we not only attract investments, but also retain them?
Yeah, well, in different manners, over so many fora like this, the president that I understudy him had become the chief marketing officer of the country, and he has been doing that job very well and eloquently, saying the right things, positioning the country in the right perspective in the global world. For instance, the new mantra in Nigeria, that is being propagated by the president is to the fact that if you bring in your investment into this country, into Nigeria, you are guaranteed of an exit. Well, that was talking actually to our challenges, earlier, before now, where it became difficult, relatively difficult for investors to exit the country with their initial investment. So you enter with your investment easily, you exit with your investment easily. That's the major incentive for most global investors. And again, there are huge opportunities in the Nigerian economy. The Nigerian economy is actually a low-cost economy. If you compare it with other advanced economies, and you also even compare it based on purchasing power parity, it's a low-cost economy. So when an investor, a global investor, comes into this country, he is assured of returns because one, either at the cost at the level of labor or the cost at the level of land and all that, all factors of production are relatively cheaper than from wherever it's coming from. So, and even if you are talking about our securities, it's still cheap. And again, with the recent increase in the MPR, the monetary policy rate, foreign investors have huge opportunities, to make huge earnings, as it were. But most importantly, you are not just bringing in your money, which you export, the capital you export into the country, but you are sure that when you are ready to go at any point in time, you are not constrained or limited. You can take out your earnings and your profits or your dividends, as the case may be. That is a major milestone that would have been achieved by this administration.
Okay, a quick one. What role do you see the private sector playing in all of this? And as it is a fact that government cannot do it alone?
An economy without the active participation of the private sector can't be said to be a prosperous economy, because the private sector is actually the engine room of an economy. And what's actually in most jurisdictions, and I think Nigeria is also growing into that, as we continue to drive an open market, open market economy philosophy. The country will allow the private sector participants to play more role and enable. The government would be limited to enabling businesses, so that it is easier to secure license. It is easier to have access to fuel. It is easier for you to. It is cheaper to have electricity, energy supply, and all that. So it's the enablement of the business, of the business environment that the federal government, the government generally, should be involved in. The private sector should be enabled in this manner, so that it is not just about having capacity to produce, in a cost benefit ratio to the local economy, but to be able to be competitive in the global economy where it exports its product. That is where we actually have the advantage, because we have a relatively small export capacity, especially at the level of our manufacturing sector and agricultural sector. So if we are able to boost these sectors, and we are also now capable, to compete globally, we will be making more earnings in addition to our traditional income earner like oil and gas.
Thank you very much. I have been speaking with Niyi Akinsijo, Finance and Development Economist. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts with us.
My pleasure always. Thanks so much for having me.